climate change is here, now, impacting the poorest of the poor in ways that are unimaginable to most. So I'm here in the village of Khadim Hussain in Khyber district in Pakistan, a district that has been really impacted by the floods that happened this summer in 2022, a district that is still impacted, a district that doesn't have drinking water, a district without health facilities, a district without schools. This is why climate finance is so critical. That is why the Secretary General and the Prime Minister of Pakistan held and jointly hosted an international conference in Geneva in January of 2023 that mobilized commitments for above $7 billion. Now is the time to show us the money. Now is the time to deliver for Pakistan. Why? Because climate change is here, and the world needs to support these communities that have done nothing to cause climate change, and yet they're at the very forefront of climate impacts. That's why the imperative of landing the loss and damage fund was so important in COP27. And that's why we now need to monetize that fund. But it is also why we need to decarbonize our economies. And the G20 countries, when they lean in, actually, we will stop climate change. So let's make sure we have enough money for mitigation and for adaptation, because communities like this do not deserve to live with those climate impacts.
Good. With that sort of introduction to the issue, then I'm happy to welcome all of you to UN City. My name is John Christensen. I'm the director of this UN Copenhagen Climate Center. And for those who haven't been here before, you are in what we in all modesty call the UN City. It's still one building, but it's not completely true. This is Campus 1. If the ones that know the town can see the sort of big white brick, which is over in Nordhavn, which is Campus 2, where we have UNICEF and all the global storage and packaging for all the global work that UNICEF is doing. And you don't feel it when you come in, but I think on a good day, there's between 1,500 and 2,000 people working here. And I guess, what's the count now, 11 or 12 agencies with different sizes, some big, some small, and a lot of collaboration between the different agencies, stimulated also by being together. And we manage the house jointly. It's when we look at climate and energy, it's quite a special house. It's highly efficient. It's platinum certified, which is the highest you could get on an office building. And if we had time and tour, I mean, there's sort of PVs on this roof. It doesn't cover the whole consumption, but it covers a fairly sizable part of it. We have cooling from the harbor and sort of internal cooling and so on. So there are lots of things that have been done to make it sustainable as far as we can, and there's a lot of focus internally also on sustainability on the food side, waste side, everything you can think about. And in every kitchen, we only have 1 or 2 electrical connections. You're not allowed to have equipment that is really sort of energy demanding. So it's really sort of something you feel when you're here. But it's a fantastic building to be in, and of course, location-wise, it's also a great place. So much about the building. We're here to talk about Pakistan and climate change, both mitigation, adaptation, impacts, vulnerability, and so on. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Ambassador Ahmad Farouk. We haven't met before, but I've also learned that it's a topic that you're really interested in. So I think it's great you could come. And similarly, we have Ambassador Jakob Linhoff, that is the Danish ambassador to Pakistan, home for a week or 2. And I know Jakob since quite a long time as somebody heavily involved in the environment and climate issues and so on. So it's a real pleasure to have both of you here. And then, of course, a new friend here, Nadim, who's been working in parallel in the Energy Agency for quite a number of years also on mainly energy and mitigation topics. I mean, we'll talk about both today, but I think there will be a dominance of mitigation issues. But I think it comes back to the point that even as Inga was presenting in the video, that Pakistan is one of the countries that have been really hardest hit by climate impacts. It doesn't mean that the country doesn't take its fair share of action in other areas. And I've always met Pakistan in the COP meetings and negotiations as a very active partner who are really engaged both on the mitigation, even if the contribution is not terribly big compared with the big countries, but still very proactive, wanting to do things. And as you'll hear from one of my colleagues, where I have Karen Olsen and Subhash Star will tell you about some of the projects we are doing and have been doing recently. And some of that focus on the mitigation side, because, I mean, the only way we can avoid future catastrophes is, of course, by reducing the emissions. So it's a bit unfair. The ones that suffer from impacts have to do that also. But it is part of sort of contributing with the sort of common but differentiated responsibilities, which is the core of the climate agreement. So it is something where I've always seen Pakistan as a very active partner, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what is going on. Yeah, I mean, you could hear from Inger that she was there and she was very sort of, you could say, personally impacted by what she saw also, and came back immediately saying we need to do something on the vulnerability assessment, early warning, and some of the things that can avoid some of the catastrophes, but at the same time work also constructively in a number of other areas. And I don't want to put up a long list of what UNEP is doing, but I mean, they're helping on the national adaptation plans, on energy efficiency, for instance, in lighting, phasing out of HFCs in the sort of ozone front. So there's a lot of projects from UNEP with the Pakistani government also. And I mean, from here, we will hear about my colleagues a little later, but also, as I mentioned, on the Danish side, there is a bilateral cooperation that we often link with or collaborate with in the countries we are in. And of course, it's something we can hear more about also from you, Nadim, in terms of what is going on in that field. So try to cover the different parts of that. And that's about it for me. Then I'll leave the moderation to my colleague, Miriam Hinestrosa, who's the UNEP sort of senior liaison person here with the center, and I'll leave the stage and give it to her. It's your floor, Mark. I'll also take my name off.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. Very welcome. My name, as John said, is Miriam Hinestrosa. I am what we call UNEP focal point here in the center. But actually, I was working in the center forever since I came to Denmark in 2003. So actually, 1st of May is going to be my 20th anniversary of working in Denmark. So again, very welcome. I am honored to take over from John. Fortunately, he made my job easier, introduced all the panel. Very welcome to everyone. It's my pleasure to be here moderating this discussion. Very interesting discussion that the center is initiating, just as was illustrated by the video. It is pressing issues that has to convene us to discuss and look for solutions and learn, unfortunately, from the crisis that countries impacted by climate change are going on. So we have a very distinguished panel. I will start introducing one by one. So what has been seen in the video is very compelling, and I don't think to say much about the impacts or anything. But these floods have had these disproportionate impacts, as you saw in Pakistan. So I think I'll have to wear my glasses. That's 20 years of work. That's what it takes. So unfortunately, we should say that crises sometimes bring opportunities as well. So I don't know if you are familiar with a book from Naomi Klein, The Shock of the Economy of the Shock, something like that. But I was thinking of that for presenting this topic here. So we have to take advantage of the crisis because we need to see opportunities coming out of there. It is in times of crisis that we see power of international cooperation, specialized technical assistance like the one offered by the Danish Energy Agency, by the Copenhagen Climate Center. And we are thrilled to have the privilege of hearing from distinguished diplomats and technical experts on how this collective action takes shape, creating new avenues for sustainability, what John has made a lot of emphasis, an example of which is this nice building, and obviously innovation in the face of adversity, unfortunately. So first, I would like to invite His Excellency Ahmad Farouk, Ambassador of Pakistan. He will shed light on countries' pressing needs in the face of recovering from this recent catastrophe that the country has suffered, as well as the opportunities for energy transition and adaptation in the country. Ambassador Farouk is an electrical engineer by education and holds a master's degree in international relations from the Tufts University in Massachusetts. He's currently ambassador to Denmark, and his diplomatic career involves missions as member of the UN Security Council and Pakistan permanent representative to UN agencies in Rome, New York, and so on. So, Ambassador Farouk, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for this kind introduction, and thank you, John. I would like to begin by thanking the United Nations Environment Programme for organizing this discussion today on what Pakistan is going through due to the impact of climate change and the climate finance and energy transition needs that we have in the future. As rightly said, climate change poses an existential threat, and nowhere more we need an evidence of that than what is currently happening in Pakistan, and especially the recent floods that we suffered last year, which is clearly a manifestation of the devastating impact of climate change and global warming. Last year, we suffered 3 heat events, and that contributed to increased melting in many of our 7,000 glaciers, which was followed by heat, intensified precipitation, leading to rains that were 500 to 700% more than the 30-year average. The estimated loss that we suffered in terms of damage to our infrastructure is about $12 billion, which is 4% of Pakistan's GDP. 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater. Over 2,000 people were killed and many more thousands were injured. 33 million people were displaced, and out of those, 6 million still remain destitute. Over 1 million homes, 5,000 kilometers of roads, 250 bridges, and over 3.6 million acres of crops and orchards were destroyed. And this is just the tip of the climate catastrophe that we are seeing. For countries like Pakistan, it is regrettable that we are at the forefront of the impact of climate change, whereas our contribution to the causes is very limited. Pakistan emits just 0.8% of the global greenhouse gases, whereas for many years we have been amongst the 10 most vulnerable countries to the impact of climate change. We also feel disappointed that countries like Pakistan are forced to deal with climate catastrophes in an ad hoc manner, where emergency appeals and pledges are made to donate rather than looking at a more long-term approach. Therefore, we welcome the inclusion of the issue of loss and damage financing in the climate, overall global climate agenda in COP27 under the Pakistan's G77 chairmanship. And we look forward to discussions in the Transition Committee that could lead to the operationalization of these funds at COP28. Now, when it comes to climate finance, first of all, it is important that developed countries fulfill the $100 billion pledge that they had made many, many years back, and quadruple the financial contributions by them without double counting, till we conclude discussions on a new financing quantified goal. Multilateral financial institutions play an important role in mobilization of concessional finance. However, many developing countries, including Pakistan, face difficulties in accessing those finance. If you look at Pakistan's experience, cumulatively, we have just managed to secure $153 million. That's the total, both from the Global Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facility. which is just a minuscule amount given the vulnerability that we have, as I said, that we are amongst the top 10 vulnerable countries. And why is it that we are not able to have a bigger share of the finance that is available? The main reason is that our capacity for developing good bankable projects is limited to meet the requirements and the criteria that are given by both these funds, which are mostly very cumbersome and in the case of the GCF, very bureaucratic. It takes on average 18 to 24 months for a project to come on ground, and by the time it does, our needs have already changed due to the impact of climate change. So in this regard, I would like to inform the audience here that one of the areas that we are going to cooperate with Denmark under our Green Framework Engagement Agreement that was signed last year is how we are able to access global climate finance better. And I hope this will help us in the future. Another important issue that I would like to highlight in the context of climate finance is the need for changing the eligibility criteria by international financial institutions by accommodating vulnerability towards natural disasters and their sociological impacts. So there are ongoing discussions on a new multidimensional vulnerability index, which is being worked out, and we hope once that this is done, it would be a significant step in the right direction for countries which are more vulnerable to the impact of climate change. Now, when we look at what is going on the mitigation side in Pakistan, a few years back, until before the Paris Agreement came into effect, Pakistan's greenhouse gases were projected to increase by 300% between 2015 and 2030. And now these estimates have been drastically reduced due to our efforts to restore carbon sinks and mitigate carbon emissions. Under our new alternative renewable energy policy, which was adopted in 2020, we have come up with certain ambitious goals in terms of our future energy, how we are going to meet our energy needs. So by 2030, 60% of all energy produced in Pakistan would be coming from renewable sources. By 2030, 30% of all new vehicles in Pakistan in various categories will be electric vehicles. We have already introduced for the first time e-buses in our public transport system. From 2020, a moratorium was imposed on new imported coal plants in Pakistan, and 2 new coal-fired plant projects were cancelled and replaced by hydropower projects. Having said that, we would still continue to develop more electricity generation based on our domestic coal, because we have to make the cost of energy viable for our businesses and for domestic consumption, which otherwise would not be. Pakistan's new indicative generation capacity expansion plan, commonly known as the IGCEP, envisages 3 gigawatts of new wind and 6 gigawatts of new solar capacity by 2030. The execution of this capacity will be based on open bidding. The bids for the first phase of the 1,000 megawatt of solar have been invited, and in due course, more auctions would be announced for wind as well as for solar. And this is where I think private sector can come in, especially from Denmark, which is a world leader in wind energy. Our efforts towards energy transition have started, and the government has started taking measures to solarize all government office buildings. Our central bank has a new scheme, a green financing policy, which is providing loans at concessional terms to the public to convert residential buildings to solar. Then more than 25 private sector companies in Pakistan signed up to the net zero commitment at COP26 in Glasgow. Recently, we have also announced an initiative for introducing energy efficiency, as well as electrification of our domestic energy consumption. So I think that in itself will be a significant step, because we currently use multiple fuels for meeting our domestic energy requirements, which includes natural gas, which also includes coal and other fuels. The government is at an advanced stage of developing its carbon framework that would guide the process for carbon trading in the country, both voluntary and compliance under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And I think one of our speakers is going to talk more about that. The government of Pakistan has a very ambitious updated NDC submitted to COP26 with 50% reduction in greenhouse gases. 15% of it is voluntary and 35% conditional to the availability of finance. So we are looking to implement it by 2030, not by 2040 or 2050, like many other countries. But I think 2030 is by 2030 is the actual time where we have to do something about mitigation. Otherwise, I mean, we won't be able to achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves. So access to global climate finance will be critical to achieve these goals. In addition, there is also a need for technical capacity building of our institutions for formulating and implementing the policies and the strategies that are required to achieve these goals. At this point, I would like to express also my gratitude to Denmark and especially to the Danish Energy Agency for their technical support, to our national energy institutions to adapt to more input of renewable energy into our grid, as well as plan better in terms of our future energy needs. More would be said by my friend Ambassador Jacob Lenolf and also Mr. Nadeem Nawaz. So in conclusion, what I would like to say is that if we can find matching resources to support our initiatives, we are prepared to set a timeline for transition to net zero. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think we have had a very comprehensive overview of the situation of the country, and I am really happy to see that the prospects are good. Even though capacities, as in many other developing countries, is lagging, I think we are here to support that. I hope to prompt all the potential that exists in the country. I won't go much more time on commenting the presentation because we are already delayed. So I will go to Danish-Pakistani cooperation. Here is His Excellency Jacob Linolf, who will be presenting. As we know, Denmark is one of the countries that from the global south we see as a model of development. A country that has made significant strides in transitioning already towards sustainable practices and renewable energy. The ambassador of Denmark to Pakistan, as I said, will offer us his insights, I hope, on how to tackle climate change while driving transformation towards cleaner ways of development. So as we all know, Denmark has successfully implemented policies and technologies to reduce carbon emissions and promote sustainable practices. I don't think I need to illustrate with examples because you all live here. So Ambassador Jacob Linolf has a master's degree in economics from Aalborg University, and he is a career diplomat with extensive experience in general trade promotion, climate and energy. He has conducted negotiations and led activities in over 20 countries, mainly in Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Jacob has served as Consul General and Head of Trade in Shanghai and Beijing. He has worked as Chief Advisor of the Danish Foreign Ministry, mainly on CDM projects. That's where we know Jacob from, credits and portfolio management, and on development assistance, and especially targeted climate initiatives in least developed countries. So he's also not only a diplomat ambassador, but also very knowledgeable in the field of climate change and especially carbon markets. So Jacob, the floor is yours.
I become a little bit scared when you introduce me so so detailed. But anyway, it's very nice to be here. It feels a little bit like coming home. I known you guys for many years. John and your team, you always do a fantastic job. I have to say, you know, in the good old days, you were in my hometown, Roskilde. Now I have to deal with that you are now in this fantastic location in Copenhagen. But it makes sense you are here, and it's good to see that you are still on the ball and doing a fantastic job. And then I'm also a little bit humbled to follow you, Ambassador Farouk. I mean, you always do a fantastic presentation, and you also did today. And if you're not aware of it, then Ambassador Farouk will leave Denmark quite soon, in a month from now. And that is pretty sad. It's pretty sad, not for you, because you will go on to new adventures, but you have made a difference for Denmark and Pakistan, that's for sure. And you will definitely be missed. Yeah. It's always good to be home in Denmark, but I don't necessarily leave Pakistan for very long before I need to go back and miss Pakistan a lot as well. I've been ambassador in Pakistan since September last year. And believe me, I've seen the most beautiful country. I've seen the most beautiful people and history and culture. I've seen a very young generation in Pakistan, a very young population with a lot of potential. But I've also seen quite some challenges and quite some sufferings, especially when I went to see the flood-affected areas in September last year. That was really something that will never, I will never forget. When you drive there and you see nothing but water, you drive on the roads, they're a little bit elevated in the landscape, so you can see pretty far. You see nothing but water. Maybe you see some old houses or some places or villages where there used to be people living, but they're not anymore because everything has been destroyed by water. So they have moved up, live alongside the elevated roads with a few pieces of wood and a blanket. That's what they have, because they lost their homes, they lost their livestock, their crops, their everything. So when I saw that, I promised myself that those years that I will be in Pakistan, I will do whatever that is in my humble power to fight that is not going to happen again, because that is really tragic. So that will be my guiding light for my period in Pakistan. And luckily, the Danish government is behind me on that. Thank God, otherwise it will be a little bit of a challenge. But the Danish government and also the Minister of Climate and Energy Agency and a lot of good people are supporting these efforts. So Denmark must fight together with Pakistan to avoid future climate change disasters and create this green transformation. We're actually not only talking about floodings in Pakistan. We are talking about fundamental changes in the ecosystems of Pakistan. So you also said it, Ambassador, it's not only heavy rains, but it's also heat waves and droughts that is affecting Pakistan a lot. 7,000 glaciers in the north are losing ice every single day with an accelerated speed. It goes into the rivers, it changes the landscape, it changes the farming and the agriculture of the country, and it changes the life of millions in Pakistan. So my hope is that we can work, and we will, and we are doing it already together to avoid this as much as we can. And I hope when Pakistanis they hear the word Denmark, they immediately think about green transition and climate-friendly solutions. We are not fully there yet. When I speak to my Pakistani friends and ask them what do they think about when they hear the word Denmark, and then they say happiness. Denmark is very famous for being we normally say we're the happiest country in the world, even though Finland beats us lately. But Pakistan we still have this very, positive image in Pakistan of being a very happy nation. And then they think about Hans Christian Andersen, as they do in so many different places in the world, so the fairy tales of Hans Christian Andersen, and then they eat butter cookies, of course.
And dairy, Danish dairy.
Yeah, they also eat some cheese and yogurt from Denmark. Yeah, that's true. So our countries, we have a very long tradition of cooperation. But I think, in our cooperation, we are not fully there still in order to comprehend that Denmark's most precious product is not, it's also very precious to sell butter and butter cookies, but our most precious product to sell to Pakistan is sustainability. That is what Pakistan really, really needs, and it is what makes Denmark stands out in the world. That is what makes Denmark different to other countries in the world, is that we are a very sustainable and climate-friendly country. We are actually a world leader. Of course, I don't need to say that here, but when it comes to renewable energy, energy efficiency, and water management. And it's not only that we are at that stage now, it's also the story behind it that's very important in Pakistan. Because the crisis that Pakistan is suffering today in terms of the energy sector is it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar to the crisis that Denmark had when I was a kid growing up in Denmark. During the 70s and 80s, where we have our energy crisis and we have our oil prices increasing too much. We were also heavily dependent on imported oil, and we couldn't afford it anymore. It was too expensive. It was also too unpredictable because we were relying on countries very far from our own culture and geographical neighborhood. It was also too politically sensitive to be dependent on other countries for our energy sector. And then it was simply too dirty, polluting and causing climate change. So our politicians at that time, they made a very brave decision to transform the whole energy sector of Denmark and to generate domestic sources for our energy consumption. And Pakistan needs to do the same now. Pakistan is suffering from the oil prices right now. Oil prices have somewhat doubled since the Ukrainian war. And at the same time, the Pakistani rupee has depreciated with 50% or even more towards the American dollar. So it's simply not affordable for Pakistan anymore to continuously buy all that oil. They need to look at domestic sources. And luckily, you can do that, Ambassador Farouk, because you have a lot of resources. You have some of the best wind resources in the world. In the province of Sindh and Balochistan, you have wind corridors, world-class wind corridors. Obviously, you have a lot of sun in Pakistan, so you can put up a lot of solar panels basically everywhere in the country. You also have a lot of hydro resources as well. So there are a lot of clean domestic resources to be utilized in Pakistan. And it's good for the climate, and it's good for the business. And what does it take to get to that? Well, in our case in Denmark, it was a long-term commitment, stability in the political system that we want this. And in order to have this stability, you can generate investors from abroad as well that believe in this. And then there are the private-public partnership. Denmark has a very strong link between the private sectors and the public sectors. That's also needed. And then you need to have a strong international cooperation. Learn from those countries that are a little bit ahead of you in this. And there are many places and many areas where Pakistan is ahead of Denmark. But when it comes to renewable energy, we have something that you can pick from us. And we're ready to do that. We are very committed to work with Pakistan on this. Denmark and Pakistan, we signed a green bilateral, as we call it, between our two countries, a green framework engagement last year. Also, you mentioned that. So we are committed to go green together. So we will work on renewable energy, energy efficiency. That's mainly your job, Nadim, and your team with the Energy Agency, and you will come back to that. We work on solid waste. try to turn waste into a resource that you can use for substituting for imported sources as well. Turn it into something solid that you can burn in the heavy industries or in the public energy production. Then we work on wastewater treatment. We have 2 very big wastewater treatment plants coming up in the province of Punjab, one in the city of Lahore and one in the city of Faisalabad, supported by Danida, and hopefully that can also inspire to have more of these types of wastewater plant coming up. And then we try also to work on the more forecasting warning systems and help Pakistan to also see how can they be better at forecasting the changing climate. So we are working with the Meteorological Institute, and we are trying to set up some systems for that. Hopefully that will also get off the ground in 2023. So a lot of these things we are working on together. We can discuss further. But one thing is for sure, I mean, we cannot fail on this. This mission we are on together with our Pakistani counterparts is simply too important to fail. And we all cross everything we have that we will not see floodings again this year as we saw it last year. We are a little bit worried, honestly. We see some projections coming up that there will be quite heavy rainfalls again. So we hope that some of the reconstruction work has been, as we call it, built back better, so there will be more resilience, but we are also afraid that we will see quite a difficult year again in Pakistan. So we need to be prepared for that, and whatever we can do at the Danish embassy and from my setup with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are very committed to help you with that. So and then I hope you will all join in this effort and try to do whatever we all have that we can help to support Pakistan, because you deserve it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. That was the other side of the situation, let's say, where a sustainable country and cooperating with a recipient country is putting up these issues into our consideration. So after having heard from them, now we would like to hear from the agencies collaborating or offering technical assistance to Pakistan, obviously with the generous funding in many cases from the Danish government. In both cases, is maybe not some projects that the center will present go beyond the Danish cooperation, but now I would like to present to Nadim Nivas from the Energy Agency. Well, you know, the Energy Agency is a dedicated agency that is actively working with renewable energy and energy efficiency. We have collaborated with them in many cases, also working together in countries like Mexico and others. The efforts have led to significant advancements, especially in wind energy technology, if I'm not mistaken, and district heating systems that the center also do some work, and sustainable transportation. And to be fair, like with the other panelists, I would like to also say a little bit of your background, so I'm warning you not to be surprised like Jacob. So Nadim Nivas is the team leader and country manager of Pakistan, leading GHG collaboration between Denmark and Pakistan under the Danish Energy Transition Initiative. He has a background of he's civil engineer and holds a master's in energy planning. So he's been working in energy sector since 2000 and focusing on energy planning, climate change mitigation, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and promoting the Danish energy model internationally. So before that, Nadim was an international project manager in Rumble, working on various energy projects as well. So we have an expert that will tell us how they are supporting Pakistan.
Thank you so much. I prefer to stand up during presentations. I hope it's okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Nadim Nivas, and thank you for the introduction. As you can see, I'm from Pakistani descent, but I was born and bred in Denmark. I got my education here in Denmark. And I've been traveling to Pakistan since childhood. But we always just traveled to our village, stayed there for a few weeks, and then came back. So it was really an honor for me to work with the Pakistani energy sector since 2021. Because the only knowledge I had of the Pakistani energy sector during childhood was load sheddings. I mean, that's what we experienced in our villages when you don't have electricity. And I was just told, well, this is the case, without sort of understanding what is behind the reason of not having electricity, and why did we have to go without electricity for such a long period during vacations. I think now I have a better understanding of what causes these issues. But let me just briefly present what we are doing from Denmark side. We have a government-to-government collaboration with the Pakistani energy authorities. Currently, the Danish Energy Agency has around 24 collaborations, government-to-government collaborations with different countries in the world. The collaboration and the program with Pakistan is a small one compared to the other countries, but we of course hope that we can increase our work in Pakistan as well. Let me just briefly present the program. The title of the program is the Danish Energy Transition Initiative. It started back in 21. We got some funding from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from the climate envelope. And we started our activities back in 21 and have been working in Pakistan for 1.5 years now. And what are we doing? As mentioned, I mean, it's a government-to-government collaboration. So we are, as the Danish Energy Agency, collaborating with the Pakistani energy authorities on sort of a bilateral level, our partners being Ministry of Energy, of course, as the lead partner, and then all the relevant authorities working beneath the ministry. So that would be, for instance, the regulator, NEPRA, very important. NEPRA is the institution who approves the IGCEP mentioned by the ambassador, but also the Pakistani TSO, NTDC, responsible for integrating the renewables into the grid. And there we also have the Danish TSO in Akinet along with us and providing technical advice to the Pakistani TSO as well. And then we have the Alternative Energy Development Board, who's actually responsible for implementing the alternative renewable energy policy mentioned by also His Excellency Abhan Farooq Saab. So they have a big task ahead. It's a very sort of new body, new organization, and they are very much relying on the other authorities to help with this implementation. So it is a fairly new sort of institution, and we're also providing technical advice to them. And then we have other key stakeholders which we try to assist. It is a fairly small program, I should say, so we don't have like a lot of outreach to a lot of stakeholders. We are focusing on the authorities because, I mean, we as an authority can bring a lot of value to them, but not necessarily engage all the stakeholders in the country. I mean, having 24 partnership programs in the world, of course, gives the Danish Energy Agency a lot of knowledge. And we try to bring knowledge from different countries into play. For instance, India, China, Indonesia, Vietnam, some of the countries having similar challenges as Pakistan has. I would say in some areas, I believe Pakistan has greater challenges compared to some of these countries, but I can just come back to that. But we are bringing in a lot of knowledge from all our partner countries relevant for Pakistan. So this is one of the I think unique sort of competencies from the Danish Energy Agency. So what are we actually doing in Pakistan? We have selected 2 sort of areas which we have given priority. I mean, you could do a lot of things in Pakistan because the challenges are just so great. But we are focusing on long-term energy planning based on modeling, development of scenarios. This is something we have been doing in Denmark since the 1970s, when we have the big oil crisis, as mentioned by Ambassador Jakob. So we have some great sort of expertise in that area. And I would say long-term energy planning, in our perspective, is not until 2030. This is a very short time period. So for us, it's going all the way to 2050, 60, and even 70. So that's what we actually consider long-term energy planning at the DA. And secondly, where the Danish TSO in Energinet contributes, not only in Pakistan, but in most of our partner countries, is actually the challenge of integrating the renewables into the grid. Because as Ambassador mentioned, I mean, Pakistan has a lot of natural resources in terms of hydro, in terms of wind, in terms of solar. So the potential is huge. But the biggest bottleneck, as we see it, is the integration of renewables in the grid. Right now, we have 4-5% coming from wind and solar, which is very small compared to the very ambitious policies. And the main barrier is actually integration. I will just come back to that shortly, because this is also something which Denmark has been working with for many decades. So just to present, I mean, some key facts and challenges as mentioned. And these, of course, we have to look at, I mean, not the situation today, but what will happen in the future, because any energy system has to prepare for the future, and that's why long-term planning is necessary. I mean, there are around 230 million, I think, people in Pakistan today, but it's increasing, and it's increasing drastically. So in 2050, the projections are 340 million. And in a country where you don't have a decoupling between economic growth, population growth, and electricity use, I mean, it just goes in parallel. So this is a huge sort of growth looking forward. So the electricity production has to increase by 376%. I mean, that's a lot for any energy system to handle. For Pakistan, it's extra difficult, I would say. As mentioned, there are nationwide power outages. I think if you look at the top 10 list of countries having national power outages for the last couple of years, you would find Pakistan on the top, which is, of course, not a good story, not at all, but they have some challenges there. So the energy sector is currently the largest contributor of emissions, 46%. So that's why we are also focusing on the energy sector. I mean, that's where the emissions are coming from. As mentioned, only 4% renewables from wind and solar in 2018, with the ambition of having at least 30% in the grid in 2030. So that's 7 years from now. A huge challenge ahead. One of the things we noticed very early on at the DA is that Pakistan is also sitting on the 5th largest coal reserve. So one of the arguments of actually having this program in Pakistan was actually, I mean, could we help Pakistan not utilizing this coal? Because from a climate change perspective, that would be a catastrophe. I mean, if you just sort of if you start utilizing the coal on a larger scale. So this was on the back of our heads when we recommended the program. Could we help Pakistan pursuing a different sort of path towards renewables? I will just come back to that if that's possible or not, but that's at least very important to consider. And as mentioned, I mean, different authorities and stakeholders in Pakistan actually think it's difficult to integrate renewables in the grid. I mean, if you speak to the Pakistani TSO, they would say, no, not possible, very difficult. We don't have the investments in place. We don't have the technical capacities in place. But because we have been working with so many countries and we have been hearing this story for a lot of TSOs in the world, we bring along the Danish TSO in Energinet, who can actually show them it is possible. I mean, we have done it in Denmark. We are doing it in other countries. It is actually possible if you have the technical capacities in place and if you can get the investment for it. So that's an important story to tell as well. Some of the key policies and targets already mentioned, the alternative renewable energy policy, 60% including hydro in 2030. And it's a bit of a gray area because they are uncertain if it will be wind, solar, or hydro, but in total, it will be 60%. And my guess is there will be a larger proportion of hydro compared to wind and solar. That's at least the feedback we are getting. And then, as mentioned, the targets for greenhouse gas reductions, very, very ambitious. 15% by sort of the country's own effort, 50% by 2030 if you can get international finance, but also technical advice from donors. So these are big targets, very ambitious targets according to the NDC in 2021. Now, just a few numbers. I mean, this is the business as usual scenario, going all the way to 2050. And I just put in the targets just to illustrate, I mean, how difficult this task actually is. I mean, this is not an easy task to reduce even 15% or 50% in 2030. This has also been highlighted by the World Bank. I mean, the investments needed to achieve this are huge. I will just come back to the investment part a bit later. Is it doable? I mean, if you look at the IGCEP, the power production plan up till 2031, you can see there's a big focus of getting rid of imported fuels, as mentioned by Ambassador Ahmed Farouk. So of course, I mean, imported coal has to be phased out, and also RLNG and furnace oil, because it's creating a lot of problems for Pakistan in terms of, I mean, the reserves, sort of, how do you say, the dollar reserves, etc. I mean, it's sort of depleting the dollar reserves. So it's a very big priority for the Pakistani government and authorities to get rid of the imported fuels. But they will increase the use of local coal. And that's, of course, problematic from a climate change perspective. And is it possible to replace that coal with renewables, such as wind and solar? I mean, that is what we are looking at. Is that realistic? Is it sort of possible to do it? And I would say, I mean, up to 2030, maybe not. But if we go beyond 2030, maybe up to 2050, 60 or 70, yes, we think it's doable if the right sort of stable frameworks are in place. If investments start coming in for renewables, then it would be possible to go for more renewables in the grid. But for now, I mean, you don't see a lot of wind, you don't see a lot of solar, but it is coming in. As Ambassador Ahmed Farouk mentioned, the competitive bidding is in place. The renewable projects are coming in, but they need investment from international donors. I think that's the main message in relation to that. And also they have the methodologies in place. I mean, they are looking at the least cost development of the energy system using the models we are providing, World Bank are providing. So the methodologies are in place, they are using those. The competitive bidding is in place, but investments need to come in order to do this in Pakistan. Just referring to some of the work done by World Bank, I mean, they have also worked on sort of long-term energy planning for the Pakistani energy system. They had developed different scenarios. What if we sort of take a political decision of no further coal? How will the development be? If we have a high share of renewables, how will the greenhouse gas emissions be reduced? So we have that from the World Bank. We don't need to do a lot of sort of scenarios. We already have some very good scenarios. But we have developed a power system model for the energy system in Pakistan, because I mean we cannot rely on what the World Bank has done. We need our own models in order to do our own analysis, and we are planning to do a scenario where we will look at, I mean, if Pakistan has to go carbon neutral in 2050, just looking at the energy system, what would that require? I mean, what is the cheapest route to carbon neutrality? Also looking at some of the neighboring countries. I mean, China has a carbon neutral ambition in 2060. India has a carbon neutral target in 2070. And I think Pakistan should also be ambitious on that ground. So we will be modeling different scenarios of carbon neutrality in maybe 2050 or 60, just to show, I mean, what is the route there and what investments are needed. So we will be doing this in a close collaboration with, of course, the Pakistani energy authorities, but also the Ministry of Climate Change in Pakistan. So what are we hoping to achieve? I mean, Pakistan needs a long-term vision. They are already developing that to reduce carbon emissions. So our modeling work will provide input to that, of course. And also we are hoping that we can influence the next NDC chapter for Pakistan being developed by the Ministry of Climate Change. I mean, of course, they are relying very much on the Pakistani energy authorities to provide that input. And we are assisting the Pakistani energy authorities with this work we are doing. So we hope to influence the next NDC coming up for Pakistan. And then we are planning to have a joint presentation at a high-level event in UAE at COP28, where we'll sort of present the work and how we see it's possible to reach these targets. So that will be coming up, and hope you can join us at COP28. So just mentioning some of the key recommendations for now. I think we will revise those when we have done some more work. But what is very apparent, I mean, Pakistan and the Pakistani energy authorities, of course, need technical development. I mean, we need to change some of the regulatory frameworks. We need to have tools in place in order to do the planning. It's good to have World Bank and other donors, but we are always saying, I mean, the authorities themselves need to have the tools so they can do the modeling and they can provide advice to the policymakers. I mean, you should not just rely on donors. You need to have this capacity in place in the authorities. That's very important, and that's what we are conveying as a message. And all sort of long-term planning should be based on very valid data, good models, which are transparent, and which can be convincing when talking to policymakers. The third recommendation, of course, is expansion of the electricity grid. It has to be expanded. I mean, just the numbers I just showed, the increase in electricity production, you need to expand the grid. So you need a lot of investments in that. And you also needed to avoid, of course, national blackouts, which are happening, of course, very often in Pakistan. And then we have to look at the flexibility in the energy system. Because if you look at the map of Pakistan, I mean, you have the hydro in the north, you have most of the renewables in Sindh, the wind and solar, and then you have all the consumption in the middle. And that's a big challenge to sort of make ends meet. And you need a very strong integrated grid in order to sort of supply this electricity. And unfortunately, I would say Pakistan are not very integrated with the neighboring countries because of certain issues. So you can't rely on neighboring countries to sort of to support you with electricity production. Fortunately, in a country like Denmark, I mean, we are very well connected with our neighbors. So if we are lacking electricity, we just get from Norway, Sweden, Germany, other countries. But this is not possible in Pakistan due to certain political reasons. So it's really an island mode energy system, which is vulnerable, I would say. So you need to find solutions to handle that, but it's possible. And then, of course, an area very close to my heart, I would say energy efficiency, especially in the industrial sector. I mean, you can build a lot of energy supply plants, but if you don't focus on energy efficiency, especially for the energy-intensive industry, you will make a lot of wrong investments. I mean, first you need to focus on energy efficiency, bringing the demand down, and then supply with renewables or whatever. If you don't do this, then from an energy planning perspective, this will be very expensive for Pakistan. Just a brief reference to the very good report just launched by World Bank in November last year. I mean, they also have done a lot of analysis and giving their recommendations. But what I find very interesting is, of course, I mean, what are we talking about in terms of the magnitude of investments for this? And the World Bank has done excellent study on this. And it's a sort of tremendous figure, I would say, of $348 billion needed to sort of help Pakistan with the climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation. And just for the energy part, I mean, if you want to have a low carbon power supply, if you want to decarbonize the transport sector, if you want to have energy efficient industry, etc., if you put all that together, then you would need $198 billion. And this is, I mean, this is a tremendous amount. So you need a lot of support, of course, from international donors in order to make this happen, because investments are not readily available in Pakistan in the current situation. So we need to bring in international donors, and we need to make them aware of this huge need in Pakistan. And then just some of the sort of also the projections made by the World Bank. I mean, what are we looking at? The investments I was talking about is in relation to this last curve here. I mean, if you want to go for deep decarbonization scenario, then you would need those investments to be in place. And if not, I mean, if you don't have high sort of ambitions, for instance, the IGCEP, then of course you need less investments for that. But it's just showing, I mean, that different paths, possible routes to get this. The Danish Energy Agency will do our analysis and bring our recommendations to the table. And maybe they will not vary very much compared to what the World Bank or others sort of are recommending or suggesting. So the biggest, I think, biggest problem or challenge, I would say, is the investment part. So I think I will close with that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive overview. Again, I think it's gone deeper on the potentials and the challenges in the country to tap on those potentials as well. And well, the last message was that the potentials and the opportunities are there, but we need investment, we need the funding. So the amounts are astronomical, as the World Bank says. Possibly you also will recommend around the same lines in terms of investment. And we see that the country still has challenges with regards to enabling environments, with regards to capacities, with regards to, for example, data gathering, which is important as well for policy making and monitoring and evaluation and everything else. So thank you very much for that. I think that has, you have left the next presenters with a very good, let's say, background with regards to the needs, especially on the financing side. As you said, the Ambassador mentioned the Green Climate Fund is there to help countries, but agencies are bureaucratic, etc. I don't want to repeat what he said, but there are the places where to go for funding. But there are also other options to attract financing, like the carbon markets. And the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is about that, the cooperative approaches. And even though it is still under development, the rules and the procedures and how to implement, countries like Pakistan, Ghana, and others are already putting in place the required regulations so transactions can be made, or the Article 6 modalities or approaches can be utilized. So the next presenters are my colleagues from the center. Karen Olsen is managing a project actually also including Pakistan in the cooperation, is capacity building for Article 6, and she will tell us the details of this project. So I don't want to say more about the center as well. As John said, it's a dedicated center to develop knowledge, provide capacity building, bring technical assistance to countries, and help navigate all these necessities that there are in the countries in order to develop the capacities that will allow for countries to transition from dirty practices, let's say, to clean practices. So Karen is, right now, she is the main person coordinating our work on carbon markets in the center, and she has more than 20 years experience in sustainability transition research, mitigation policy impact assessment, capacity building in developing countries, and so on. She co-founded the Sustainable Development Initiative for Article 6 of the Paris Agreement in 2017 and has been following the UNFCCC negotiations also since she's joined the center around the same time as me. She is a geographer, holds a PhD in International Development Studies and a master's in Political Science. So Karen, please tell us about your project in Pakistan. By the way, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yes. So, following on all the excellent presentations, I will give an example of the Spark project, which is supporting Pakistan to implement carbon markets, the international ones that are defined in Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And it also feels a little bit like coming home working on this topic, but for a long time, carbon markets were the only outstanding article in the Paris Agreement not agreed. Very controversial in the sense of making or breaking the potential for achieving the overall goals of the Paris Agreement, the 1.5 degree target. It's bringing in private sector to exactly help finance the deep decarbonization, including supporting energy transition. And there's even a share of proceeds for adaptation under the 6-4 mechanism. So just a little bit what it is. It's called cooperative approaches, and we have 3 approaches. The middle one, the 6-4, is what is also called the CDM successor. This is top-down defined by the Secretariat, or actually not the Secretariat, but the parties, but supported by the Secretariat. And also the Article 6.2, which is guidance on how to account for what is called ITMOs, International Traded Mitigation Outcomes, a ton of a CO2 removal or reduction. And we also have non-market approaches, which is more agreements on, for instance, phase out of subsidies for fossil fuels. But that's another type of cooperation. So in Pakistan, we focus on the helping government, but also private sector and academia. And my colleagues Shangli and Jay are leading, Shangli in Pakistan, Jay on what we call the community of practice, taking a research-based approach to involve academia, developing knowledge, and working transdisciplinary with private sector and with governments. I will try and be brief. So this figure explains the project. And in the middle, we have the gray boxes on how we are supporting countries for readiness to make use of carbon markets. And here we focus on, as also Nadeem talked about, the long-term strategy for low emissions, both medium and long-term. Both the vision, which will come out very soon, but also a strategy for how carbon markets can support pathways to, well, first implementing NDCs short term. And then I was really excited to hear that if there's also an opportunity for a net zero target, a longer term. We also support in setting up governance frameworks. Things like infrastructure on registries, it's very technical. And then we call it mitigation activity development, which is about the actions, the projects, the programs, the policies for crediting so we can get the tons of CO2 that are priced. And here the prices in the voluntary market is around perhaps $5 per ton, but it could go as high, some shadow prices are $250 per ton. So it's about pricing, and of course markets are meant to be identifying the cheapest ones first. So we have a toolbox, and we have events for stakeholders to meet also across the countries. The toolbox are the guides, the technical guides. I don't think I'll go into this, but this is where we work with the academics so that we do go a deep dive into all these aspects. Strategy, we also call it promoting ambition and transformational change. This is with a view to the global goals, also for sustainable development, but starting with the Paris Agreement climate goals. And I think I've said the other ones. I think this is covered by Nadim, a lot of the numbers, particularly that we come from a very high baseline, 300% increase in emissions, and that taking this as the business as usual starting point, the NDC and also the carbon markets will help achieve those targets, bringing in the private sector finance. And we see that there's the willingness from government of Pakistan to develop an Article 6 approach. There's already a strong commitment to make use of markets, but there are not yet any pilot actions that have started yet, so we want to support developing these. And there are also a lot of institutional frameworks underway, such as the National Committee on Establishment of Carbon Markets launched in December, and we know a lot more is on the way. So now, ongoing is a readiness and needs assessment. We are mapping the participation requirements for Pakistan to make use of the carbon markets. All countries have to submit an initial report. There's a template from the Secretariat. But to do that, there's a lot of analysis required in terms of assessing the NDC robustness. What is the monitoring, reporting, verification framework linked to the transparency framework of the Paris Agreement? All that has to be in place. And how can we assist at the technical level for Pakistan to be ready? So we're doing that as the starting point for a 5-year capacity building program. And this is the timeline and we are collaborating with Nadim and with Jakob, with the embassy in Islamabad, and also for donor coordination purposes. And here the acronyms BMWK means that the funding is coming from the German government. And that there will be in-person meetings in May and also the summer in June, so that the governments of Pakistan and Germany can validate and have strategic dialogues on common priorities. And these are some of our longer-term timelines for the technical assistance we are providing on planning, governance, and project development. So thanks, and you're welcome to come back for follow-up questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Karen. I know it's a very technical presentation. It's perhaps something new for the audience, so you're welcome to make questions after our last colleague presenting. But one thing I would like to highlight from what Nadine and Karen have said about capacity building. I think Nadim has said something very important, which is development capacities should remain in the countries. So the objectives now also from agencies like ours are to work with countries so the teachings or the learnings are remaining in the system. So working with academia in Pakistan is one of the approaches we found as long-lasting. So a lot to be done as well in this front in Pakistan to help the government to get ready for these transactions if they wish to take over those opportunities. It's all about carbon markets, creating the conditions, the regulations, and applying the rules that ultimately will come from the Secretariat. On the policy aspect, which is also where we help a lot countries, similarly to what Article 6 project will do on RNA's readiness need assessment, the center has been working with countries for the past 15 or more years, helping them with technology needs assessment as well. So that's one of the long-lasting cooperation the center has been doing with UNEP and GEF, who is the agency providing the fundings for that. So it's a planning tool, technology needs assessment. So Subhash will tell us how we've done this in Pakistan, also that government would consider using as a tool for planning. Subhash, I need to say who you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Subhash is a senior researcher at UNEP in the center, focusing on mitigation analysis and data management. He was the lead author of Transport chapter in the 6th IPCC assessment and has extensive research experience in sustainable urban transport, focusing on low carbon development, technology transfer, and climate change. Subhash has worked on answer Markal for energy system modeling. So like Nadim, he also has modeling background, publishing numerous climate scenarios studies, and has worked on the greenhouse abatement cost model, which is known as GASMO, applying it to analyze net zero scenarios. So now, please, Subhash, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And I would also like to add that I had my association with Pakistan comes from being the country coordinator for the TNA of Pakistan, and it was a very you can say very good experience working with stakeholders and the consultants in Pakistan. So what I will be presenting is very short. I think I thank the audience for all their patience. So I will not take a very long time. So this is a very short presentation, and in fact I would request you to basically, because this project we did for TNA in Pakistan from 2015 to 2018. So it is a little bit old, but it is very happy to see that a lot of things we discussed and we came out with are again being reiterated or repeated here. So see it from that context. So the TNA projects we have been doing, as Miriam mentioned, for a very long time. In fact, almost like 14, 15 years we have been doing it. And these have been funded by the GEF. But in case of Pakistan, this was also very unique because it was not only GEF funds, it was also CTCN funds. So Climate Technology Center and Network is here in Copenhagen only. So we got funding from two sides and we did very good job of that. Now TNA is a very stepwise project. So it has these 3 steps. The step 1 is basically prioritization of technologies in a sector. Now Nadim was making a presentation of how you can do it using some kind of a modeling framework, but in TNA the approach is more stakeholder driven. So stakeholders try to identify what are the priority technologies for Pakistan. And then once we have done this, the next step is to see, okay, these are priorities for Pakistan, but for what reason have they not diffused widely in the country? So the second step is more to understand what are the barriers which impede the diffusion of these technologies. And then the final step is to prepare an action plan, or you can also call it a roadmap, and identify what are the actions, what are the actors, and what are the resources that will be required to implement it. And all this process is done through a wide stakeholder consultation process. You take into account what are the country's own national priorities, and we have been complementing this now, because there has also been over a period of time a lot of focus on implementation. So we have tried to also in this TNA process include preparation of, initially we used to call them project ideas, but now we are doing project concepts. In case of Pakistan, we actually did a project concept which was submitted to GCF on climate smart agriculture. Now, in case of Pakistan, the focus in TNA was on both adaptation and mitigation. In the adaptation, we had two sectors, water and agriculture, and these sectors were chosen by the country itself. And because of their high, you can say, relevance from the vulnerability point of view. In fact, His Excellency, the Ambassador Saab, also talked about heat waves, droughts, and floods. We are currently thinking a lot about floods, but actually these are all parts of the same problem. Like you have floods one year and the other year you're fighting with the drought. And if you look at the technologies which were prioritized in Pakistan for the adaptation in these three sectors, one way of looking at these is that these are technologies which can help in addressing drought, can help in fighting high temperatures but at the same time, if you reverse them, you will find that these technologies are equally relevant for flooding also. Because if you see in the slide, you have technologies like rainwater harvesting, stormwater management, groundwater recharge. So they help in fighting the drought, but at the same time, they can be seen from that perspective also. The second thing we looked at is that we finished the project in Pakistan in 2018. And then in the TNA project, we have tried to then systematically also look into that after we moved out of the country with the TNA, what has happened in the country. So we are trying to look at how GCF, how JEF, how World Bank, they have taken up what was identified within the TNA into some projects. And I'm happy to say that there are few projects I have mentioned here. You can read it. There is a project which is funded by GCF on climate smart agriculture. And then recently there was a project which has been funded by World Bank on, climate resilient agriculture. At the same time, we were also taking like inputs from our ministry with whom we are working in the TNA project, what has been happening on the ground. And there are also a number of projects which the country has implemented with their own resources. So it is not only that country is reliant on donor funding, they are also doing certain things with their own funds. But at the same time, we have this picture on the right-hand side and we have a lot has been spoken, so I won't go into that. But it makes one thing very clear, that things are happening, but at the same time, they are not happening at the scale and speed at which it is required. So this is the very important lesson. So the direction is correct, but maybe we need to press the accelerator and move the car now faster on the expressway. I have also put some slides on the mitigation side, so because this mitigation was a focus also of this project. So in fact, if you look at the presentation by Nadeem, you can see, for example, in energy sector, a lot of renewable energy is the focus. All these were priorities which are identified in the TNA itself also. In the transport sector, we had focus on public transit like bus rapid transit systems, but also improving the efficiency of the vehicles was also a focus there. And similarly, we had technologies which are prioritized on the forestry side. Again, there are donors which are providing funding, and there is my favorite project amongst this is Green BRT, because this is a model of how you could basically fund a public, you can say, through a public-private partnership, and also very strong stakeholder involvement from the, you can say, provincial government. So this is a very good project, and in fact, we have included it in our TNA financing guidebook also, because of the relevance it has not only for Pakistan, but for other countries which are looking to develop GCF projects, because we are talking here about climate financing. So this is also a role model project for us. So again, you can see financing is happening, but again, on the mitigation side also there is a need, because as Nadeem showed in his presentation from World Bank, we are not talking of millions, we are talking of billions of funding going into the country. So what you have here is good to say that something is happening, but at the same time, scale up is what is required now. And coming back, this is self-promotion. TNA has been going on. Now we are in the phase 5 of the project. Pakistan was a country which happened in the phase 2 of the project. In phase 5 of the project, I am happy to say that there are countries which did TNA in phase 1 and are coming back to do a phase 5. So it is also an invitation for countries which have completed TNA to do another TNA. And finally, if you have any questions, I would like you to take note of Sarah, who is the global project manager for this project, and And she was here, I think now she has gone, but you can contact Sarah if you have any questions on the TNA, because and plus I work as the regional coordinator for Asia Pacific region on the TNA. Thank you very much. And I think if there are any questions, I am here.
Thank you very much, Subhash. I think that has closed a very interesting discussion, and with this great panel, everyone making very great presentations. Thank you very much for that. I would like to open up for questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mohammad Athar Javed. I'm Director General for Pakistan House. We're a think tank, advise the state in international affairs and other, like the climate change as well, but we advise in terms of climate change impact on the critical infrastructure and the way it disconnects the entire country in different parts in the region, which affects not only the livelihood, but also, the security and other areas as well. So I'm very happy to see, I've been in Denmark for decades, and I see that Ambassador Ahmed Farouk and Jakob had rightly mentioned, especially Jakob's passion about the way Denmark has taken the lead since 2021 is a great example. Of course, we have challenges, which Nadeem mentioned, $348 billion. But I'd like to ask the panel, I mean, of course, it's, Jakob and Ahmed Sahib can point out this to, that what kind of potentials we have. Of course, we know the challenges. Can we do something without this kind of large funding? Because we're talking about decades of work. What is the basic need contemporarily? Well, how can we, is there a possibility we could have early warning systems installed, and from there we could do the preventive measures? I would really appreciate if both Excellencies and Nadeem can shed a light. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? We collect questions and then we go to the panel for their kind answers.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Amin Hassan,
Pia?
Sustainability Manager at LM Wind Power. We produce blades for the onshore and offshore wind. So I'm a Danish citizen as well as Pakistani. Yeah, so my question is more about one of the big challenge that Pakistan has is the export. So we do not have a lot of exports in Pakistan, and that's why we have the problem of foreign reserves and the currencies. And this has direct relation to the emissions, greenhouse gas protocols and stuff like those. If we increase our exports, then we will basically more produce CO2 in the industrial sides, because I can see here the industrial contribution to the total greenhouse gas emission is very less compared to the many other industrial countries like India and China and others. So how we see to reduce this 50% absolute greenhouse gas emission? Is it without the industrial growth perspective in the mind? If this is true, then it is a high cost of reducing greenhouse gas emission, because it's increased the lot of fundamental economic problem that Pakistan is facing. If not, then what is the key performance indicators to reduce this emission? Because I have some experiences to reducing these greenhouse gas emissions should be indicated with some other KPIs like revenue generation, like the total energies that we are producing, like anything that should be relevant to the reduction. Otherwise, I think it's really hard to achieve this realistic objective. Thank you.
Thank you. Here, please, gentlemen.
Hi. Right. Thank you so much for the panel for such a wonderful presentation. My name is Hamza Abid. I'm from the Sustainable Energy Planning Research Group from Aalborg University. And like most of the people here, the topic is very close to my heart as well. And I was very happy to see the presentation by Subhash at the end when you talked about the transport sector, because the transport sector is also, like many of the developing economies, and also for the developed economies, that is a problem. And for most of it, the dependency for Pakistan, that comes from for foreign oil. So the Pakistani transport sector is also dependent on foreign oil, which further causes the balance of payments problems. So, and that is a discussion that is sometimes missed when you look at the overall energy systems. And when Nadeem, you talked about the energy efficiency, so I just wanted to ask you if you think the transport sector, could that be a low-hanging fruit in the overall energy system? And also, secondly, I would just like to take this opportunity when I have the two ambassadors over here to ask you if there are any things that you're doing to increase the mobilities between the two countries of the people. So because the Pakistan can, of course, has a lot of bright, talented people that can come over here, and then Denmark has a lot of good practices that Pakistan can learn. So I just wanted to have your take on that.
Thank you. I saw this gentleman here as well. Okay. I think we'll close the questions with the gentleman over there. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Vikas Qureshi.
Sorry.
I'm CEO of Transatlantic Energy, which is an IPP in Pakistan. We're developing wind power in Pakistan. And I just want to give a bit of background on myself before I can put some points here. I've been also on the board member for HESCO, which is the second largest utility company in Pakistan, for a few years. So I have quite exposure of Pakistani energy sector and renewable sector. And thank you so much for the Danish government who's doing so much in Pakistan and trying to improve the sector, especially the renewable energy sector. But I wanted to highlight a few areas which I think, yes, which requires investment in Pakistan, but I think that right target investment is more important. And I think few areas which really are sometimes overlooked, and as Ambassador said, not enough projects are there in the pipeline. So I think there needs to be some sort of, from the global fund and something, like there's an infrastructure fund called InfraCo who does development investments. So I think there's a specific need in Pakistan for early stage project development funding, especially from the equity perspective, because we all know this, that most of the projects which you start developing, they never reach the financial close. So I think there's a funding requirement towards those kind of funds. Latest type of funds, a lot of them available. So I think early stage investment is required for starting projects, initiating projects. I think that's always overlooked. Secondly, I saw a lot of emphasis on more renewable projects, wind, solar. I think Pakistan, and Nadeem also pointed out this thing that all the countries' requirement is in the center, whereas the power production is not in the center. So what are we missing here is a good grid connectivity in the country. We recently had a very big blackout in Pakistan, and that's because of the grid, not because of the generation. So as of in the short run, it's not the generation that matters, it's the grid transportation that matters in the Pakistani environment, which is missing. We are focusing a lot more solar when we have wind in Pakistan in the south, which you can't even take to the north, because if you talk to any wind developer today, offtake is hardly 30% of their total development right now. So what you really need to do is focus on investment on the grid infrastructure. I think the foreign entities like UN, IFC, I think they need to come down and really look into grid infrastructure and how to make investment there to improve that. Even perhaps new auctions should be on the grid, not on the generation right now. Because if you don't have generation, I mean, I've been on the board of HESCO for a few years, and we had 30% loss on the grid transportation. So if you're going to do more generation and you're going to leak through the pipeline, there's no point. And last but not the least, I think is still as we are today, our institutions are great institutions, very old institutions, but what they require is continued education like NEPRA, NTDC, so that they evolve into a mindset where they believe in renewable. Today, they don't believe in renewable, they're pushed renewable. So I think that's where institutions like perhaps TNA and all these come in, and continued education from bottom up needs to be happening, and it should be continued thing, not once or twice a year. It's a continued process, and then that's how the cultures are evolved in the long run. So these 2-3 points I thought were important, and I think they need to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question.
I guess I'll be the last one.
Sure, John.
My name is Athar Nawaz. Nadeem and me, we share the same last name, but we are not related. So I work at Ørsted, and my question is about the bidding process. So Nadeem Saab mentioned that there has been a competitive bidding in the Pakistani system for the green energy transformation. To my understanding, when the Danish companies, they try to bid, they try to make sure that the right scenarios are there so that they can bid. So what kind of measures or steps Pakistani government has taken, or perhaps Nadeem Saab or others have seen that what steps that they have seen the Pakistani government have done to attract all the bidders? So it should not be only one or two or three attractive bidders, but it should be a comprehensive bidding that can also help Pakistan getting the right place into the market.
Thank you very much. I said it was the last question, but because my boss said he wants to ask the question, I would give him the
Sorry, Miriam, I'll make it really quick. I just wanted to amplify one of the previous questions a little bit on the energy efficiency side, because you talked a lot about supply. And of course, it's both the grid and the system, but it's also about efficiency in a general sense, which in many cases require much less investment. So it's maybe an easier place to start. You mentioned it towards the end, Nadeem. But it's also a focus of the Danish program in general, not just in Pakistan. It's very much on planning and renewables. But there's also a lot of Danish expertise and companies in the efficiency space that is out there and working already. I think the other one links also with what the colleague said before is on communication. Because I had last year the chance to speak to a group of Pakistani journalists who was invited by the Minister of Foreign Affairs to come here. And it was very clear there was a strong hunger for information, knowledge, and also a little bit of despair about the sort of perceptions. And I think if you come back, Jakob, we talk about the 70s, 80s, if you talk to the power companies here, at that time I just started up at research in the mid-80s, and sort of, I mean, no way we can get over 10%. The system is going to collapse. I mean, and I mean, we reached 10%, it worked. And so, I mean, there's a lot of perceptions that we need to work really hard on, because it's both political but also technical. You have people who have been educated in coal power technology, and they love it, they like it, they don't believe the other thing is going to work. So there's going to be a lot of perception. You need to move beyond the money, and I think that can help a lot of it, and then the money will likely flow. I think it's going to be a challenge, because you are in a group of countries with the same problems at different stages. Vietnam, Indonesia, India, China to some extent. Huge coal deposits, growing demand, a lot of interest in investment, but also competing internally. So there will be challenges, and you need to make yourself attractive in that space.
Thank you very much. Okay, my other bosses, so go ahead, please.
in Copenhagen Business School, yeah, I went through burnout for funding, and I still don't have it, for the project which is called Inclusive Economy for Marginalized Mothers. I've been denied bank account in The Hague to actually enable developments for Pakistan with a director from Lahore who previously received substantial amounts from the government of Netherlands on the basis of Pakistan being a country of terrorism. So I would like to have a discussion on that whenever it's appropriate and with who it's possible. Right? How do we do it that women who actually enable sustainable development have funding in Europe and for the development fund? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, as you see, the questions are very strong, challenging. I don't know if I would summarize. Would you like to pick some of the questions yourself?
I'll take the first strike on this. So all very interesting questions. Some more technical than I would be in a position to answer. But let me start with the last question first. I think there is a lot of misperception about the role of women in our society, and you having been lived in Pakistan, I'm sure you have experienced that now there are a lot more women that are going to universities and consequently are also ending up on the job markets. Tech sector is one where we see a lot of women coming in. We have growing IT companies in Pakistan, and a lot of the human resource right now are women. I would actually say women are doing much better in education as compared to the men right now. If you so. So, if you allow me to finish my answer. In terms of banking, I agree there were some challenges until October of last year, as Pakistan, along with many other countries, was on the Financial Action Task Force grey list, the so-called grey list. So we have come off that grey list. And also there is a separate list which the European Union maintains, in terms of high-risk countries. So we are off that list as well as of last month. So now if some bank tells you that they can't, do business with Pakistani banks, then basically they are not following the guidance that is coming from their own central banks, and I'm talking of all European. So I don't think now, if you try again, you will face the same problem. We had this issue for the last 5 years, and now we are out of it.
Fantastic. I definitely
So,
Thank you.
yes. I think the first question was like, what could be done short term with less money? There are many things I think that can be done. One of the issues that has come across different questions is, investment in public transport. We've already seen, as Subhash also mentioned, and he showed the photographs of the rapid bus transport in Karachi, as I understand, and where e-buses have been introduced for the first time, as I also mentioned in my. That is there. We have huge needs in terms of adaptation. I mean, what is currently happening is that our agricultural productivity has started to go down due to the impact of climate change. And that is something short term we need a lot of technical assistance, to help our farmers to deal with what is going on in terms of the impact of climate change on agricultural productivity. Energy efficiency is another area where I think small investments can matter a lot. And again, I think that was one of the areas of cooperation that we initially had as part of the Danish Energy Transition Initiative. For some reasons it was taken out, but I think that has a lot of scope for us. Now, exports obviously is an important issue right now for us, and and many of the economic challenges that we are facing is because we actually need to export maybe 2 or 3 times the level that we are exporting, and if we do that, obviously there would be a greater demand on the energy usage. But again, it's the overall, I think, the energy mix that we are looking at in terms of if we look at the long-term scenario and if we are able to switch more towards renewables as compared to fossil fuel, then I think there could be some balancing out, and we can achieve the goals that that we have set for ourselves in terms of our emissions. Mobility of people currently, business people don't have challenges in terms of moving between the two countries. There are issues in terms of others, which we continue to discuss with our Danish colleagues, and hopefully that also will be addressed in the future. Now, the points that were mentioned by Mr. Waka, is it at the end? So in terms of what needs to be done for improving the energy infrastructure, I completely agree with that. We have a very aging grid that needs investment, and there is no, I think, shortcut for it. It's not just that the grid is not reliable, it's also inefficient. The losses in the grid are very high. So there is no way out of that, and there has to be investment into the grid to actually also improve the offtake of renewables into it. Continued education, I also agree, is very important, and the Danish Energy Agency is playing a role in that. There are other international partners that are collaborating with us, but I think it's also important for us as well. One has to admit that how are we retaining all the technical advice and capacity building support that we are getting. So we have to also build on that, and the support, I think, for academia, I think that is I believe very important, because they can become a permanent repository of all the knowledge that is coming into Pakistan. Bidding, we are following the standard bidding practices. The recent auction was basically, it was launched internationally, and I'm sure there are Danish companies, they have their, this was related to solar, so Denmark is not one of the countries that has interest on the solar side, but I believe once we also auction the wind sections in our wind, that would be available. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't know if somebody else would like to add answers to Ambassador Farouk's, the technical sides, maybe.
No, just let me, thank you so much for, taking most of the questions.
Yes.
And I, very much agree with everything you said. One thing maybe that you didn't touch upon was the increased mobility of people between our two countries. And we all know it's not all that easy. It's not all that easy for Pakistanis to get visas to Denmark, sadly. And it's not that common for Danish people to travel to Pakistan. I mean, there's a very wrong perception of Pakistan being a very dangerous place, which it is not. You can definitely come and visit us. And some Danish people do. There are a lot of business people coming in and out of Pakistan all the time. So it is possible. But there's a lot of skills, and there are a lot of Pakistanis in Denmark, and I'm very surprised by that community, positively surprised. I mean, we are roughly 35,000 Danish Pakistanis living in Denmark, and see the engagement that they put into supporting the relationship between Denmark and Pakistan is very, inspiring. And I meet a lot of inspiring people here. And if we can kind of, work on that and see how we can build a business and exchange on that knowledge and that expertise, I think we can come a long way. We are trying to join the Danish Pakistani alumni in different groups, and we try to gain from their experiences to boost the trade and business and investment between our two countries. So I very much agree. The more mobility and the more people exchange we can have, but we have a lot of expertise already that we can draw upon. So that is something of a priority for us these days. And just one more thing I would like to say, that's export. I mean, we got the question that Pakistan needs to export more to earn more foreign exchange, but if you have more business, then you will use more energy, and then you are in an evil circle. I don't agree to that, actually. I think, you need to export more. You need to keep your business going to have an economic performance that can help you decouple your economic growth from your energy consumption. I definitely believe that is possible. There's a lot of even low-hanging fruits in Pakistan to reduce the energy consumption per output. So, but you need to have some activity. You have to have some income to get that activity going. So yeah, whatever we can do also to promote export. I mean, we very much. And then there's the other way around, to attract investments, of course. Yeah. Yeah, but very good questions all around. I mean, very, very, very good questions.
Yeah, I think we are going to have some minutes for interactions over the coffee. So I would very much encourage you to approach our panelists on that. Thank you very much. I think we have had the X-ray of Pakistan. Unfortunately, we've been united because of a disaster. But as I said at the beginning, let's concentrate on the opportunities. And I see there is a big potential, very generous donors as the Danish cooperation, and also this passion, I would say, of people working there and motivated by witnessing what is happening in the countries. So a very good job, Jacob, what you're doing in Pakistan, the Energy Agency, of course, my colleagues and everyone else. And you, thank you very much for being here. And I hope that this kind of talks will continue. Very, very, very well idea of organizing this talk. So thank you, John, for being here as well the whole time. So thank you very much. Until the next time.